Hey, Allison, welcome to
Hey,
the His and Her Money
Allison.
Show.
Oh, Ty and Talent, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
We're
Yes,
excited to have you here. You should have been
absolutely.
here. I don't know how you
Yes,
ain't been
yeah,
here
exactly.
at the His and Her Money
Oh my
headquarters,
gosh.
but
This
we're
is
glad to have you
episode,
on the
like
show.
by this point, we've already done over how many episodes?
We're right up against 500.
500. And I'm like, it's not one
Wow.
of those 500 yet. So we're so excited.
Our friend is here with
Yes, our
us,
friend is here with
Allison
us.
Yes.
Baggerly. We're
Yes.
so glad to have you here on the show. But some people are being introduced to you for the very first time right
Mhm.
now. So can you just say hello to everybody that's tuned in and let them know what you're all about?
So, hi, my name is Allison. I'm so happy that you're listening. And basically, what I do is I am a former teacher. I am married, I have kids, and I teach women, specifically women, how to budget, pay off debt, and save money. And I'm just super passionate about helping people where I used to be, where I used to feel stuck and overwhelmed and confused and lost. And I want to guide people to a different place.
I love it. And I'm excited to actually hear about your journey.
Hmm.
But your journey started with debt. So I want you to
Yes.
tell everybody how much debt were you in, what type of debt was it, and how long did it take you to pay it off?
I actually brought, I know if you're listening to this, you can't see this, but I have my little debt free thermometer that I had many years ago. So we had $111,000 worth of debt, $111,108.29 worth of debt. And it was mostly student loans, car loans. We actually paid off credit cards before we totaled up our debt. So it was technically more, but we don't have record of that. And basically, we paid that off on two teacher salaries. I was an elementary teacher. My husband is still a band director in 4.5 years while growing our family. So while pausing to have two kids along the way.
Man,
Wow.
that's a big deal.
So how did your journey even begin? Like what made you and your husband say, I think that we need to get out of debt?
We got pregnant. We got pregnant and we weren't, I was kind of tracking our spending, but we had never written a budget. We were just kind of living life very free and we got pregnant and I was not mentally and probably mature enough to be prepared for it. And when we sat down, I was like, how much does daycare cost? Wait, daycare costs how much? And I was like, we don't have that much money. We don't have that much money left over every single month. And so I decided something has to change and I got my husband on board. He is a very much an action taker. So we, started budgeting, we started paying off debt and the entire thing was started by fear of not being able to provide for someone other than ourselves. And it just continued to snowball after that. And we worked on it even though we didn't make a lot of money. Whenever we first started, we were making about $80,000 to $85,000 a year. We continued to put more and more money to debt every single month.
Wow. Now,
Wow.
when you first had this epiphany, you guys are about to be parents for the first time and
Mhm.
you started counting up the numbers and stuff like that. A lot of people get to that point and they're
Yep.
like, man, this is going to be rough, looking at daycare costs for the first time, looking
Yeah.
at
Hmm.
income versus outgo at an in-depth level for the first time. But not a lot of people use that as a motivation to get out of debt. It's an eye opener. It's a shock. It's a jolt to the
Hmm.
system. But a lot of times people just
Go
go
with
with the
it.
flow and they
Yeah.
just kind of figure it out and get by, scrape by, paycheck to paycheck,
Hmm.
whatever they have to do. But you all said, we are going to do something different. And you did something different. What do you
Yeah.
think it was that allowed you to not just have this idea, this thought, to get out of debt, to do things different, but what do you think allowed you guys to put feet to it, allow you guys to actually progress towards it and then eventually conquer the debt?
So, to be honest with you, whenever I first graduated from college and I met my husband, I was a teacher, was a teacher. My thinking was that we would forever be poor. I thought we're teachers, we're always going to be poor, we're always going to have debt. It's not that big of a deal. This is like our cross to bear. This is just what our life is going to be like. And then whenever we found out we were pregnant and I realized that we couldn't afford daycare, we wouldn't be able to do the things that we wanted to do, I got mad because I was like, who says I have to be poor? Who says I, as a teacher, have to struggle with money? Who says I have to be in debt? And I know that might be what the world says, and that might be what other people do and what my teaching friends say, but I'm going to do something different because I had a bigger vision for my life and my future than what the world was telling me to do. So a lot of it was almost like, if you're going to tell me I can't do something, I'm going to prove you wrong. And my husband, we cast this vision, and although it seemed impossible, we actually had teacher friends tell us, like, what are you doing? That's stupid. You're never, don't pay off your student loans. You get that back on your taxes. I mean, it was, even though we had everyone saying no, everyone telling us we couldn't do it, the world telling us we couldn't do it, our income telling us, nope, you can't make this work. We had a vision that was bigger than what the world had for us.
That's powerful.
Wow, wow. I love it. You took it in your own hands and you guys actually have crossed that debt-free line. So talk about the steps that you took. Now that you all have decided to take this journey, what were some of the things that you all did to pay off this debt with a teacher's salary?
Yes. So we definitely had to learn how to write a budget. And that took months of practice because no budget is perfect. No humans are perfect. We're humans living in this world, and we're going to make mistakes. We're going to spend too much money. And so we had to write a budget, track our spending, and basically become experts in our finances. My biggest thing is that you don't have to be an expert in personal finances to become an expert in your finances. So during this process, we became experts in our money habits, our spending habits. I started facing the truth of my spending habits, how when I'm feeling emotional, I either want to eat or I want to spend money. And so I had to face that so that I could put roadblocks and barriers in place so that way I could change those habits. And my husband had to do some of the same things. And then we just started paying off our debt. Our interest rates weren't too terribly different. So we went ahead and just did this debt snowball method. So that way we could just have a plan and practice, and we colored in our little debt-free thermometer.
So you bring up a good point. The fact that you and your husband, your student loan debt was sort of the same interest. So you all took the approach of that snowball method. Is that a method that you recommend to everyone or anyone, no matter the interest rate, or would the interest rate have played a part in it if yours were very, far out and different?
So I think for me, my interest rate would have played a part. I like to tell people to develop their own debt payoff plan. It doesn't have to be Avalanche. It doesn't have to be Snowball. You can develop a plan that works for you. For instance, if we needed to free up cash quickly to be able to come up with daycare costs, I might pay off the loans with the largest minimum payments first, so that way I could free that up. For us, we were able to tackle a lot of debt in those 9 months before we got pregnant, before my son came. And then we were faced with the same thing when we got pregnant again. We had 2 kids in daycare and, all of this debt. So we had to just keep at it. But I think it definitely depends on your situation and your motivation. If you need that extra motivation, if you're worried you're going to give up, then do the debt snowball because you're going to get some of those quick wins. But if you're in it for the long haul and you really want to see those credit cards with those super high interest rates out of your life, then tackle those first.
You said something key earlier. You said that you and your husband had to face your habits, the habits that were taking you away from your goal. A lot of people, they'll go as far as maybe becoming aware of their money habits. They know that, like you said, when I'm emotional, I like to spend. But facing it means that you put in the work, your husband put in the work to change those bad habits. What do you think allowed you to make the change take place, and not just take place temporarily, but make it stick?
I think that 100% it came down to accountability. For instance, I am a spender at heart. I love to spend money. I get a thrill from it. And when I would want to spend money, I would turn to my husband and I would say, I want to spend money. And he would help talk me through, okay, well, what's really going on? Also, we had a rule we were both okay with this rule that if you're going to spend more than $50, you have to talk to the other person and they can veto it. So there were lots of times whenever he would veto it, and he wasn't vetoing my spending to be mean, to be unkind. He was vetoing my spending because I couldn't hold myself accountable. So I needed someone else to help hold me accountable to reach our goals. And so he would say, no, you're not going to go to Target and get that lamp and that plant and that picture frame you want. Maybe you can save up for it with your spending money, but remember, we have this bigger goal. And I was never hateful towards him because of that. Instead, I was thankful. And I said, you know what? Thank you. Because in my mind, here's what I wanted, but I know that's just what I want now. That's not what I want in the long run.
So I want to get to the part of this story about how you actually use your debt freedom story to build a business. But before I do that, let everyone know about that day when you all paid off your very, very last debt payment.
So we paid off our very last debt payment. We actually did something that I don't recommend, and we drained our savings to pay off our last debt payment because we were so close and I was so done. And then like 3 days later, we got hit with medical bills. And I was like, no, why? But it worked out. We were able to cash flow everything. But it just felt so surreal. I remember my youngest son was napping. My oldest son was probably about 4 or 5 years old. And we just felt free. But then we had no money to go celebrate because we had been sending it all to debt. So we ended up saving up money, and we celebrated a year later by taking a big couples trip to Mexico, which was wonderful. But it just I felt proud that we had come together to tackle something that was bigger than us. It was for our kids. It was for our future grandchildren. It was for that peace and security. And I was proud that we were able to do it on 2 teachers' salaries, because there's so many teachers out there that feel stuck and alone, and they feel lost, and they feel like it's not possible. And we are living proof that it is.
Yeah, I love it.
Man.
So what was the pivot? What made you now take your story and you build a business out of it?
So never in my life did I think I would be an entrepreneur. Never. I always thought I would be a teacher forever, or maybe, go to a company and work in HR or something. I don't know. I never thought this would happen. But basically on this journey, I became extremely passionate about budgeting, extremely passionate about paying off debt, that I never thought that I would be passionate about something like that. And when I was paying off debt, I could talk about it because I was going through it. And so we paid off all of our debt. We became debt free in August. The following Easter, so April, I'm at my grandparents' house. All of our family is there. And I'm continuing to talk about budgeting and paying off debt. And my cousin-in-law was like, Allison, enough. And I said, excuse me? And she said, we've all heard it. You have talked to us about budgeting. You have talked to us about being debt free. We've heard it. It's time for you to clearly you're excited about this. It's time for you to take this to people who want to hear it, because our family's done. And I was like, okay, clearly I'm excited about this. If, 9 months later, I can't stop talking about it. And I was bothering my friends with it. And so 2 weeks later, Inspire Budget was born. My mom, my husband, and I stayed up until 2 a.m. brainstorming business names. And, within 2 years, I was able to leave my full-time teaching job, which I never thought I would be able to do. And it's because I'm teaching women. So I'm taking my skill set and my talent of teaching, but my passion and my love for budgeting and personal finances, and putting them together.
That's dope.
I love that story of how sometimes our family, in a loving way, and sometimes in a sting, can literally push you to your purpose. And I don't think if your family member if they didn't tell you that, maybe you wouldn't be sitting here today with Inspire Budget.
Yeah, I don't think I would be, because in my mind, I was like, well, no, I'm a teacher. That's what other people do. But then it's like, why not me? Why not me? Whenever maybe that's what someone needs. Maybe someone can resonate so much with my story that I can be a couple steps ahead of them and grab their hand and say, hey, come on, let me show you the way. You don't have to feel alone like I did, because that was my issue. Is I felt so alone. Other than my husband being there for me and my mom, I did feel alone, because the internet wasn't this big thing. There wasn't Instagram with all these people that were on their debt-free journey. It felt weird and odd and alone when everyone else was going out and living a different life. And I don't want people to feel the way I did.
Yeah. So there are a lot of people who listen to our show who are in the midst of paying off their debt, who have already paid off their debt. And maybe they too had that light bulb moment. I think I want to share this with the world. So talk about the steps that you took, because for someone that's never done this, again, you said you never saw yourself as being an entrepreneur. So you didn't have a clue on what to do and how to do it. What were some of the things that you actually walked out in order to kind of build this to a place? You said that you have now left your full-time career to do this full-time. So talk about the progression.
So I would say the first thing I did was I came up with a business name. And I don't necessarily know if I did this correctly. So I'm sure there's lots of ways to go about doing it. But I thought, how can I help people? What do I want to provide for them? I got a website. I started writing articles. I started creating printables, digital products. I knew that I wanted to do something digital because I was working a full-time teaching job. I was working 40, 50 hours a week teaching 5th grade math. So I couldn't be shipping things out. I couldn't be, be necessarily doing one-on-one coaching. And so I started with digital products. How can I teach people, give them the knowledge so that way they can turn around and go back and write their budget for themselves? Uh, Ultimately, what it came down to was figuring out one day at a time. What do I want to tackle now? What's my next step? Because right now I have a membership, but I didn't start there. I started there with my blog and my website. I started there with slowly helping people, slowly making money. My first year in business, or my first 6 months in business, I made negative $66. I mean, I was spending money to host this website and I wasn't making any money from it. Yet I knew that I was going to get there one day. I knew ultimately all of this could come together and help people.
Now, a lot of people, even looking at our own journey, I can, in my mind, think of a bunch of blogs or websites that launched when we did, and they're no longer here. So a lot of people have ideas. A lot of people try to launch blogs, websites, platforms, but a lot of people don't make it. You were able to not only launch, you said you and your husband, your mom stayed up all night, came up with the idea, and 2 years later, it's now your full-time thing. What do you think is the difference between those like yourself who are able to have this idea, bring it to life, and keep building it and growing it versus someone who had the same maybe passion starting out, the same willingness to help people starting out, but fizzled out and they're no longer in the game? What do you think the difference is?
I think that Inspire Budget is bigger than me. And I always tried to keep sight of the fact that it's bigger than me. It is bigger than the hours at night that I was spending on it after my teaching job. My husband reminded me, Inspire Budget is bigger than you. You are here to help people. I actually have a sign right here behind me. I'm pointing to it that says, "Thank you, God, for giving me the opportunity to serve others." And I have that there to remind myself that I am here to serve others. And that if I continue to come up and show up every single day with a heart of service, that I will continue to hopefully be provided with the opportunity to serve. And so I also think that it's something I'm very passionate about. I could not talk about gardening every single day for the rest of my life. I have no passion for it. So because I have found something I'm passionate about, because I see it as an act of service, and that I really do want to make a difference and help people, that it allows me to keep going when times get hard, because I know that in the end, I will be helping people.
Yeah. So talk about, and kind of to your point, kind of to piggyback on your point, how some actually fizzle out and some actually thrive and make it. I think that some people approach their journey of sharing their story more like it's a hobby, never about actually monetizing and making money. So talk about how you took this thing, your message, something that you're passionate about, and you decided to monetize it, now making a living to be able to provide for your family.
So I started out by just saying, okay, what is it that people need? What is it that I can offer? And it was simple. It was small. It was little. I mean, it was very, very little. And I had started off with an Etsy store. And then I said, okay, how can I diversify my income? I have some printables. What can I do now? And it was a matter of being able to diversify my income so I have many different income streams, so that if for some reason my ad revenue that month is not good, that I'm still able to make money. And it was finding multiple ways to make money, yet still support people. And also almost hidden ways. People will ask me, I don't understand. My mother-in-law said, "How do you make money?" And I was like, it's funny. I make money in a lot of different ways. I do sell products, but I also make money behind the scenes in ways that people might not understand or might not see. And so it came to a lot of educating myself, being willing to say, hey, I don't have all the answers, so let me turn to someone who does and learn from them. And that's a very humbling experience, because when you have been doing a job, I was a teacher for 10 years, I felt very secure in my job. I felt like I was the leader. I was the person that other teachers came to. I had to turn around and in my business say, I need to find someone that can guide me. I need to be willing to do the research. I need to be willing to try new things and fail at some of them and then learn from those mistakes.
Man, that's so good. So somebody heard you say you make money in the background. Can you talk about the different streams that sharing your message has allowed you to bring in extra income?
Some
So what
people,
are
like
some,
you said,
they're
they
like,
don't
I
realize
don't
that
even know how else
there's
I can
ways
make
to
money.
do it.
Right,
Yeah.
right. So talk about the different streams of how your business makes money.
Of course. So I do earn money from ad revenue. Those are ads that live on my website. And that is literally just in the background. I do nothing. As long as I continue to get page views, I get ads. I do some affiliate marketing, which is whenever I might promote someone else's product, I get money from promoting it and then making a sale off of it. So affiliate marketing. I make money from my membership, which is very active. And I am promoting, I am, working in that every single month, every single week. I make money from my product sales, which is just like my digital products online. I make money from, what was I going to say? Product sales.
Sponsorship?
Thank you. I make money from brand sponsors. I work with brands that I know, love, and trust, and they will pay me. Almost think of it as, instead of them paying maybe for a spot on a commercial or an ad in a magazine, brands have learned that they can have influencers or people who have large followings to promote something, because those people are more willing to trust that person than they are an ad placement somewhere.
So now you said that you had a really intentionality behind not trying to do everything, because you didn't have the answer to everything. You just started with your website, writing articles, and you built from there. So for the person that just heard you talk about all these different streams, they're like, okay, I got to figure out this. I got to learn this. I got to learn that. I got to learn this before I can start. So talk about, put yourself back in that moment, because it's easier said than done. When you're starting out, you want to do all the things because you see other people doing all the things. But when you're just starting out, how did you scaffold that learning curve for yourself and adding this to your repertoire and that to your repertoire?
So I want to reference a quote by John Acuff, who's one of my favorite authors. And he says, don't compare your beginning to someone else's middle. And that can be very hard, because you're thinking, well, they're successful. And I still struggle with this, which is why it's one of my favorite quotes. But when I first started out, it was, how can I have a website and a blog? What does good content on it look like? And the first blog posts that I put out were awful. I had no idea. I thought they were wonderful. I thought they were amazing. But I look back now and I realize that because I didn't have practice writing, that they weren't great, but I just started there. And then I said, how can I create a simple, easy product so I get practice? And my first product was not great, but I did it. And I did it because it's all about making progress and not being perfect. So I would say one step at a time. I didn't try to tackle all of those income streams at one time. I took one at a time, and I listened to podcasts about income streams, and I thought, oh, I can learn how to do. And sometimes that looked like meet up with someone on SiteGround hosting, because my website crashed, because I was learning how to use WordPress for the very first time. And that's exactly what it looked like. And once I tackled that, once I had that down, I moved on to something else.
Yeah. You got a question?
Go ahead.
Okay. I guess my next question is, how did you know when it was the right time for you then to leave your teaching career?
I got to the point in running my business and teaching full time where I had basically replaced my full-time teaching income. I got into that point, and I was basically just saving all the money I made from Inspire Budget. I didn't go crazy and go buy things. We weren't going on fancy vacations with the money. It was just going into a savings account. And literally in my bank, the savings account was labeled Quit Teaching Fund. This is my Quit Teaching Fund. That's you can change the name of it.
Yes.
And it got to the point where I had barely replaced my teaching income, but I was so overworked. Our marriage was hanging on by a thread. And I said, one of them has to go. I can't keep doing this. I can't keep going to work all day, giving my best version of myself to my 60 students, coming home with no energy, giving the worst version of myself to my family and my children, and then staying up until 11 o'clock at night working on my business. So that's when my husband said, well, what is it that you want to do? Like, we both agreed I couldn't do both of them anymore. And I said, I want to do Inspire Budget. He said, okay, well, you're quitting. Like, you can finish out this school year and you can do it full time because you have been making the money. You know, this is the right time and it's the right decision for you. I mean, I was the picture of unhealthiness and I was sick of it. And I hate that I got to that point. People warned me, Allison, you know, you're working too much. You're not getting enough sleep. You're not eating healthy. I could see it, yet I was in it so much that I couldn't pull myself out. And it took a big conversation with my husband to just say, you can't be doing this both anymore. It's too much. And it was.
That's the part of the game that nobody want to talk about.
Yes, that was
and that building
transparent moment. Yeah, like that.
When you're building something
exhausted
from the ground up and you're living in these two worlds, the 9 to 5 world, 3 worlds, 9 to 5 world, family world, and entrepreneurship world all at the same time. And there's only 24 hours in a day and there's only one of you. It's something has to give. Like that's the part of, like, people love to tell the part of the story. I started and in 2 years I was a full-time entrepreneur. But you just were so transparent, like, yo, my marriage was hanging on by a thread. Like, we barely made it out of that building phase. So what, in hindsight, and all that you've learned during that journey, on the other side of that tough part of the journey, what's your advice to the person that's listening to you, that's been taking notes, that's ready to launch their thing, about doing it? And like you said, you were unhealthy. You did it in an unhealthy way. So what's your advice in doing it in a healthy way when you have all these things that you're juggling?
So I wish I knew the answer to that. I would say hire out as much as you can. Even that's okay. Take half of what you're making and hire out what you can to someone and then save the rest of it. Because ultimately, your goal is you shouldn't be living on that business income right now. Right? If you have a 9 to 5 job, live off of that. Take your business money and hire out some of it. If I had hired out some of my work, I would not have gotten to that point. But I was too proud to do it. I thought I had to do it all, and I don't. I hire out stuff now. I have 3 or 4 people I hire, VAs that I hire things out to. But I had too much in my own head of saying, no, I have to be able to do it all. No, you don't. No one does it all. It is impossible. And you are so right. No one ever talks about this part of the struggle. Everyone just wants to show the end result, the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, but it's not a rainbow getting there. It is hard, but it is possible. It is possible. But I would say hire out, have boundaries in place. I did not have boundaries. My business fed into every aspect of my life. Have boundaries in place, have date nights in place with your spouse. That is where you put your phone away and accept the fact that it might take you longer than you anticipate to leave your 9 to 5 and be okay with that.
Yeah, love it. So talk about how your entire journey from debt freedom to now building your own business and then leaving your full-time career and now just running your entire business. Talk about how your life has changed.
Gosh, it has changed drastically. It's night and day. I went from being a school teacher. I remember I would drop my kids off at daycare and I would say, if they could just be at daycare less than 10 hours today, I will be happy. Because by the time I dropped them off and by the time I picked them up at the end of my day, they were there for 10 hours. And it broke my heart when they were there for more than 10 hours. So now I'm able to walk my kids to school. Well, not right now, but when my kids are in school, I'm able to walk them to school. I'm able to pick them up. Is it still stressful? Absolutely. Do I still struggle with balance? 100%. However, I'm enjoying the freedom, and better than all of it combined, I am happy with what I'm doing, which allows me to in turn serve my people better. When I am happy with my business, when I am happy with myself, when I have passion and there is purpose in what I am doing, I can serve my people even better than I might have been serving my students before. I am a better mom because of it. My kids see me work hard. They see the little Post-it notes of the people who join my membership, and they know mommy's going to help them. So overall, I would say it was definitely worth the struggle. It was worth the work, because I can see myself doing this forever.
Nice. So if people want to stay in touch with you and keep up with all that you got going on, where do they find you?
You can find me online at inspiredbudget.com. You can find me on Instagram at inspiredbudget. And if you're into podcasts, I actually have a podcast, and you are, because you're listening to this. I actually have a podcast with my good friend, Chris Browning, and it's called This is Awkward. And we talk about awkward money situations.
Well, Allison will be sure to have everything linked in the show notes of this episode. We truly appreciate you coming on and sharing not only your story of debt freedom, but your journey in entrepreneurship, and all of it is inspirational. So thank you so much for sharing with us today.
Thank you, Ty. Thank you, Talit.